Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody out there in podcast land. You are in tune to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I am David.
And we're going to keep with the theme. Our last podcast, we had spoken with a gentleman talking about not all men are dogs, and it was a great podcast because it was right before Valentine's Day, and everybody had their church suits on and what have you. And the guest that we have today, she's going to talk about attracting your fairy tale love, and this can happen even after Valentine's Day. So it's going against popular opinion that the world's going to end if you don't have your fairy tale love after Valentine's Day. She is a children's author. She has written many books. I'm excited speaking with her because in the Buddhist tradition and other traditions around the world, you are actually reaching enlightenment in higher realms of thinking when you think like a child. So maybe we can throw some of the logic out and go back into our child mentality, at least for this hour. I'd like to welcome from Las Vegas, we have Rosie Pova to the podcast. Welcome, Rosie.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and talking to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for making it. And I'm actually glad that you're alive to talk to us because many people fall off the planet Earth if they don't find their fairy tale love for Valentine's Day.
Oh, they'll be safe after hearing this talk. So, yeah, I am alive and everyone else will be fine. Yes, promise.
Well, we talked a little before the podcast came on. Why do you think there's so much energy centered around Valentine's Day?
Well, it's only natural because everybody is looking for their soulmate, and we naturally need and want love in our life. So it's very natural for people to want to have a partner to celebrate with. But to me, it's not just for that one day. You know, all the hype and all the commercializing of the holiday is not really necessary because it's too much pressure and people get depressed over it, but they don't realize that matters of the heart it shouldn't be commercial at all, you know, and it's not just for one day, it's for the whole year and for your whole life. So don't just hang on that one day.
Yeah, I think the other side of it that I experienced, fortunately or unfortunately, is I'll get calls from other people after Valentine's Day because they weren't really happy with the gifts they received from their current boyfriend. And I'm like, well, how do I take that? That is so conditional, and that you may not be my fairy tale love after all.
Oh, okay. Based on a gift, that's not a very good, perspective, because if you're expecting something, of course, you just set up yourself for disappointment very easily. It's never going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, and that's not what's important. Because, yeah, a guy picking a gift, right there, there's just, fault in that. But it's not about the gift, and shouldn't be.
You were saying some earth-shattering stuff right there, Rosie. I don't know. The girls might take your girl card.
Well, yeah, it's nice. It's a nice gesture, and it's fine. But yeah, there is something much deeper than you should be looking for.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And so let's get into it. So, at the introduction, and I was talking about you being a children's author, and in some spiritual traditions, you have to start out as a child because once you throw the logic in, you're actually taking some of your spirituality out. And so I wanted to know a little bit about your background and what led you into the children's author category.
Yes, I'm originally from Bulgaria. I grew up there, and I immigrated to North America as an adult in 1998. I've always been a fan of writing, and I love storytelling. So that was there. My love for writing has always been there. And I've written lots of poetry and essays, short stories, you name it, as a child. And but then I revisited my love for writing after having my first child, my first daughter, and reading children's books to her. So I just started writing my own, and from there, it was just meant to be. I couldn't get away anymore, and had many books published, and keep doing that. I love it. I enjoy it. It's my passion. And I love encouraging kids today to also follow their passions and dream big, because I came from this communist country with such unsupportive environment where you were constantly being socially judged about everything, put down constantly, and condemned for your aspirations. And my home life as well, it was difficult and unsupportive. And I just want to encourage everybody that no matter where you come from or what family you've been raised in, you can still decide who you want to be and follow your dreams and passions. So that is my mission today.
I love it. Have you seen the movie Mr. Church with Eddie Murphy?
I might have. I don't recall.
Yeah, it's really interesting because as I was talking earlier, spiritually or being like a child, you're kind of open and you have a sense of wonder. And I was getting this itch to watch Mr. Church, and I was like, why? Eddie Murphy's usually funny, but it's kind of like a drama type movie. So I watched it the other day, and I just realized it was for this conversation right now, and that he was supposed to take care of this woman for like 6 months. She had cancer, and she had a little girl. And what happened, the woman wound up living like 5 years later, and then he wound up becoming just a family staple for the rest of that child's life. And that child became an author afterwards, because he always talked about the importance of reading and rereading. If you read a book and you love it, then it's okay to read it like 5 or 6 times. And at the end, she wound up becoming an author, and she was talking about how big of an influence that he was to her in his life. And you were saying that, in the immediate family you may not have had it, but who was in your immediate circle that allowed you to explore your childlike wonder?
Yes. My grandparents, actually, unlike my parents, my grandparents read stories to me. I don't remember, actually, my mom or dad ever reading to me or telling me a story, but my grandparents did, especially my grandfather, fairy tales mostly. And it was magical to me, staying at their place and listening to their stories. And my grandmother also, she was telling me stories from her childhood, from the Bible, and it was my escape. And even daydreaming or music, that's what kept me going, and that was truly my escape.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. My favorite guy in the whole world, rest in peace, was my grandfather. And it was just so many times that as a child I was able, to listen to him from stories, but as a teenager, running like, what do I do with girls and stuff, even though my dad was around, it was more so my grandfather. And luckily I was in my mid to late 30s before he transitioned. How are your grandparents still alive, or if not, how long did you able to spend time with them?
Well, I was in my teenage years, yes, and now I don't have any living grandparents, because both my parents are the third child, and so they were, at a advanced age. But no, I don't have, and unfortunately, I don't have them anymore.
Well, rest in peace to your grandparents, and it sounds like they are very instrumental in making you the well-rounded woman that you are today.
Yes. I love them, and I really enjoyed my time with them. I'm so happy that I have those memories as a child with them. I even dedicated a book to them, and it's about grandparents and the special bond that kids share with them. So it's really special to me.
Nice.
So, Rosie, let me ask real quick. So, growing up in Bulgaria, you said even when you were young, you had a love for words and stories and reading. Is that what you knew when you were a child, that you wanted to be an author and a writer, or did you have something you just enjoyed and you wanted to be something else, or is that what you wanted to be?
Well, I wanted to be a journalist. That's what I remember. I just loved analyzing, telling stories, and just playing with words. That was my strength. In school, that was my thing. I've always loved it. So, yeah, I remember wanting to be a journalist in Bulgaria, shedding some light on some, obscure events or the truth, exposing the truth or something like that. But, yeah, so it was definitely writing in my dreams. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you said that you came to the United States in 1998, and so you were exposed to some of the journalism in Bulgaria. What's the difference between the journalism there versus here?
Oh, yeah, I've been away for so long now, for 21 years, and I'm imagining, yeah, it's changed a lot. I know that, but how much I can't even at this time, because it was a communist country most of my life. I lived there, and then when the democracy came, all of a sudden it became very chaotic, and all that freedom, people didn't know what to do with it, and it kind of went to an extreme where it became sort of ugly. So I don't know how things are going now. Hopefully better, but there's very, very many differences and the way people handle the journalism.
Oh, no worries. I mean, this is about Valentine's Day and finding your true love and fairy tales, so we don't have to delve into the real world, at least for this hour.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's go back to being a child. You had written a book, If I Weren't With You, and it's usually for children aged 3 to 6. What was that book about?
Well, that book is about safety and security, reassurance of safety and security and mother's love. It's very special to me because it's kind of came from both my experiences as a child, where I was longing for safety and security and love and reassurance, and the time when I became a mom, and my experience with my own children, especially my first one. I was one of those overprotective moms. Wouldn't let my friends hold my baby, and I was obsessed with safety, and it's just, the love was so big and so overwhelming. But I have 3 kids now, and so I'm just glad that book is out.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I wanted to bring it up because you were talking about safety and security, and we were joking a little bit about gifts. And usually guys think about, the bigger the gift, it shows the bigger my affection or attention towards you. That's not always the case, and it seems like the underlying theme that most women want is the safety and security, not necessarily the gift behind it.
Exactly, yes. Gifts come and go, and you might not remember it after a while, but the bigger picture is what you're looking for, and don't just hang on the little things that are, superficial things. You need the deeper connections. That's what you're looking for, so you're absolutely right.
Nice. There's a friend of mine, he God rest his soul also, he transitioned. His name was Ray, and he was from New Jersey, and his real life was just like the TV show with Ray Romano, where his parents, right? His parents, his wife had the same name as the person on the show, and his parents lived right across the street. So he would come in all the time. We're like, "Is that your life, Ray?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's totally my life." And it was hilarious, right? And so one thing that comes to mind for this conversation was, they had, I think, 3 kids together, and one time his wife was just really out of sorts, let's say, and he was like, what's wrong, babe? And she said, look, I just want to be alone right now. And so he was like, okay. So he took the 3 kids out for ice cream, and they were gone for a couple hours, and he came back, and she was pissed at him. He was like, what? You said you wanted to be alone. She was like, no, what I meant was I just want alone time with you. You totally misconstrued what I was talking about. And, right? That's always life where we have these mixed communications. But overall, it is communication. So what's a better way to communicate with your partner?
Oh yes, communication is key. Don't expect. Sometimes we expect our partners to read our minds and just know what we want, or just say the opposite of what we want. Trying to test them maybe in some way, but don't do that. That's tricky, and you set yourself up for disappointment. Just speak your needs, speak your expectations, and have a honest discussion. No tricks involved, because nobody wins if you're trying to trick the other person. Just open communication, sincere, and that's key. So you know what's expected. That would be my take on that. But yeah, communication is key in every type of relationship, business, personal, anything. So yeah, no games there.
You said trick, so I'm a little confused because most women would say that is a test. So is it one and the same?
Well, it depends. It could not really. You might not realize it. I'm not saying that you're doing that on purpose, but it's tricky for the guy to understand a woman's language if it's not, honest and direct. And you thinking, you might want to test, or you don't feel like saying what you really want, but you want them to guess your needs. So in that way, it could be tricky. It's not that you're doing it on purpose. That's not what I meant, But, yeah, open communication.
Nice. I'm playing with you here, so thanks for playing along.
Yeah, no. Well, I can go both ways, so.
Oh, sure. Guys aren't innocent. Guys, do tricks and all that other stuff, too. So I'll throw the guys under the bus for this podcast. It's okay.
Yeah. You're right.
Now, one thing that I did find in looking at your background was when you're talking about fairy tales, you are talking about making a commitment to believe in your fairy tale. So how do you create a fairy tale as an adult, and how do you make a commitment to see that fairy tale is manifested?
Yes. So as kids, of course, we believe in fairy tales, and then as we grow up, we think it's silly and we shouldn't do it anymore. But in fact, the opposite is right, because everything is a fairy tale. Everything that we're thinking before it's manifested is sort of a fairy tale. It's a story that is not real, even in science. All that innovations and technology invented. At first it was an idea and a story that you're telling yourself, and it doesn't exist. But because it's science, you tend to believe it and work toward achieving it. To where when it's the matters of the heart, you think it's silly and you shouldn't believe it because it's just a fairy tale. But that's the play of the law of attraction also. When you believe that, you have that vibration, that energy, and you are attracting it. You're attracting what you believe and what you think about. So if you focus on the lack of your soulmate, and you're alone and you're sad, and that's what you attract, not knowing it. And you think you're looking for the soulmate, but we're not ready because you're not vibrating with that same energy in order to find it. So that is the kind of fairy tale you need to create. Focus on what you want, what you're looking for, what you're expecting, what gets you excited, what gets you positive, to set yourself in that positive mindset. You can create boards. There's different ways to do that. You can meditate, but once you start thinking positive thoughts and what you want, then you're attracting that. So in that sense, create your fairy tale. Think about what you want and believe it. Think it until you believe it. You can't make too big of a jump if you're depressed and in despair. But little steps, something positive, And with time, you'll get there and start believing it, and it will start happening. You'll see the signs. So, and it could go many different ways. So don't get discouraged. The main thing is to get in that positive state of mind, and from there to pay attention to your instincts and impulses. And don't try to rationalize or overanalyze. Just go with it. And for example, let's say you just finished folding laundry on a Sunday night, and you meditate, you practice your affirmations, and you're feeling pretty positive and hopeful. So you're browsing your Facebook timeline and maybe hoping something or someone of interest will pop up, and all of a sudden you're craving Ben and Jerry's ice cream. So, how strange, you might be thinking, But now before you start telling yourself you're too tired to go or talk yourself out of going out for ice cream, just get up and go with it. So, but let's say on your way there, you're driving and you get a flat tire. And I understand that the old you might get upset about it, and the new you might be tempted to say, really, universe? I trusted you and trusted my instincts, and this is what I get. But hold up the blame for a moment, because let's say you're leaning against your car in the dark trying to decide who to call to help you out with the flat tire. And then a white Lexus pulls over, and out comes a drop-dead gorgeous man, your perfect type. Just go with me. Stay with me here. And he wants to help you change the flat tire. And you grin and get all giddy, but then out the passenger's door, his gorgeous wife steps out. And again, you're seriously, universe? You're starting to doubt this law of attraction thing and suspect it's just playing games with you. Now, the good couple helps you with your car trouble, and, it turns out they're just missionaries and felt the need to give you a hand. And you really do appreciate the gesture, but you still can't figure out what the whole ice cream craving was about. And by the time you drive off to Ben & Jerry's, it's already closed. So you decide to just swing by the nearest Walgreens and get a bottle of wine and call it a night. And maybe you're thinking you misunderstood the whispers from the universe. But you're walking the aisle trying to pick a bottle of red wine, and a voice behind you says, may I recommend the 14 Hands Merlot? It's really good, and it goes pretty much with everything, even ice cream. And you turn around, and there's this charismatic stud smiling at you, holding up a bucket of ice cream and no wedding ring on his finger. And you finally know what the whole ice cream thing was about. And you smile and say, thank you, universe. And that's how it might play out. So you never know. Just pay attention to the signs.
That sounds like an excellent TV show of the Rosie Pova show. That was an excellent episode.
Right? Just an example. It might happen. You never know. But, yeah. So that was my fairy tale. That was my dose of fairy tale for you. Since you asked that question, right?
Yeah. How long, Rosie, did it take before you knew that your husband was your soulmate?
Not long at all. Not long. Yeah. And we've been married for 21 years now with 3 kids. So, I must have been right or something.
Yeah. If I were to ask him the same question, would he say the same thing? If he knew, was it kind of a simultaneous? You both kind of just knew.
Could you repeat that? I didn't hear the.
If I were to ask him that same question, would he say the same thing? He just pretty much right away.
Maybe. I can't speak for him, but He must have known too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think so. Yes.
So it makes me also think of I want to talk about sabotage, because you're talking about before that wonderful story that people are tired of being lonely on Valentine's Day, and so they're missing some of those whispers or misinterpreting some of those whispers. And one of my favorite shows on Netflix is The Good Place. Are you familiar with that show?
No, I'm not.
Okay, it's no problem. I just watch a lot of Netflix apparently. So
I stopped a while ago.
Well, in the show, the lady dies, and she thinks she's in heaven, but she's really not. So it's a lot of tongue in cheek about The Good Place, where she's torturing herself. And in one scenario, when you die, they put you with your soulmate, and so she's with this guy, and he totally does not look like what she imagined to be her soulmate. And then, through a couple of episodes, they're like, wow, we really are soulmates. And she was like, this is what I wanted my whole life, right? And so when she realized that's what she really wanted, she started to sabotage the relationship. So what happens with the law of attraction when you get those whispers? The universe gives you what you want, and then you're like, oh, my goodness, is it really what I wanted? I didn't really want it, or I wanted it my own way, not the way the universe set it out for me.
Yes. Well, you must have had that vibration going on somewhere on a deeper level without realizing, because you are constantly having a vibration, whether you realize it or not, and it might be a negative one. You might think what you need, and it doesn't have to be, you don't say it with words necessarily, and you still have that vibration. So you might be thinking, just because you're saying the words, this is what I want, that this is the vibration you're offering, but that might not be the case. So you get what you are attracting, and there must be something going on, some false belief that you're having about relationships, and you need to work on that, change your perspective. Or be really clear on what you want. And you can't hear those whispers if you're in a negative state of mind. You have to be in a positive state of mind. So just stop and ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? And if you hear something when you're angry or upset or depressed, that's not the right whisper you want to follow. You have to be in a positive state of mind. So that's part you need to pay attention to. The whispers that come from overwhelming emotions are not the right ones to follow.
I love it. It. So another fairy tale that most girls love as children is Snow White. And with Snow White, one of the famous lines is, mirror, mirror on the wall, right? And so would you also say for law of attraction that everyone's a mirror of the vibration that you're putting out, and so you should actually be thankful, right? If you're putting out a negative vibration and someone returns that to you, that's actually showing you in real time what you're putting out, and you can make plans to adjust that vibration. Or can you not? Okay.
Yes, that is a very good question, and that is the point. Your emotion as your guidance system. So you will know if you're feeling negative, you must address that and do something about it. Refocus your attention to something that feels good, that feels positive to you. It doesn't have to be on the exact same subject you're looking for improvement. It could be on something entirely different. The point is to raise your vibration, and you can do it so many ways. Your environment is offering plenty of things to like. There are many things that you dislike, but just don't focus on them. Just focus on the things that you like in order to raise your vibration. And you're right, this is your mirror. This is your system is telling you if you're in the right state of mind or the wrong one, and what to do from there. All that, the contrast that is offered, and I do use a lot of Abraham's words because that's what I listen and read to, and Jerry and Esther's tapes. But yeah, they say there's nothing wrong with the contrast because it helps you determine what you actually want and what you don't want, so you can focus on the things you want. But what we do is, because we see the things that we don't want and we focus on that, we just fixate on that and start complaining, why is it that way, why I don't have it, instead of looking for what I would like to have and how I'd like it to be. And that's your focusing on the positive instead. So yeah, you're right.
We're big fans of Abraham as well. And so that's why I was bringing up that mirror, because, the other side of that coin is someone may be rude to you, but that's not necessarily what you're putting out. It's something that they're dealing with, and it has nothing to do with you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, right. And when you're thinking of the partner you want, so let's say, are you ready for that partner? Can you attract that partner? Because if you're in your negative state of mind, you cannot attract someone positive. If you want them to be trustworthy and bring you security and be positive and be cheerful and helpful and all those qualities, are you offering that same vibration so that you can meet that guy? You're probably not. And if you're offering something, you're desperate or you're depressed, and you attract someone like that, and then you don't like them. If someone like that comes in your life and you don't like them, you don't want to go out with that guy who has no money and is not secure and it's not loving and thoughtful. You don't want anyone like that, right? So if you're not offering the right vibration, you will not be able to attract that person.
Yeah, another fairy tale song is Row, Row, Row Your Boat, right? And so at the end of the song, they talk about life is but a dream. And since you're a fan of Abraham, Esther says even though Jerry transitioned, it still was that fairy tale love even today, because since life is just a dream, he's still in her life throughout the day, and she can tell if she's feeling low, he's not around. When her vibrations are up, he'll be around. So he's still a barometer to help her shape her vibration.
Mhm. Yes. The dream has to be with a positive vibration. Just saying the words or looking at the boards. You can if you're not feeling it, there's no point. So, yeah, make sure you adjust your dream to where, and don't go too far as to where you create that kind of fairy tale that it's so abstract to you that you there's no way you can believe it. That doesn't work either. It's kind of sabotaging yourself because you wouldn't believe it. So don't go too far. Just take it one step at a time and focus on the positive. There's another song, and as you start mentioning songs, but I'm trying to think of, and I know it well, but I'm trying to think of it. If you believe something in a fairy tale, you can take the future even if you fail. So that's what it's all about. If you do believe the fairy tale, it doesn't matter if you fail, because that's just temporary. And you keep believing it until it manifests.
Yeah,
I love that song.
I'm trying. What do you know the name of that song? I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, it's in the lyrics. It's not the actual name of the song, but it's from Mamma Mia 2. Lily James is singing it. I just want to come up with the right lyric right now, but it might come to me. I just, you've never heard it? Have you watched Mamma Mia 2?
No, I'm missing out on life apparently.
Oh, lots of good songs, I can tell you that. Yeah. Mhm.
So the other thing that I would think about is soulmates. And so kind of going back to row, row, row your boat, life is just a dream. Sometimes that soulmate could be that person that's giving you so much contrast. So while you're in third dimension, you probably hate that person. But when you transition, you find that that was your soulmate and y'all had a contract to give you that contrast so you can raise your vibration. So it's not always straightforward.
Yes, that is correct. And it's I know sometimes we get frustrated with our partners for some things, and we think, oh, okay, well, it's not perfect, so maybe that's not the soulmate I was looking for. But it's plays a role, and you're right. There's the good things and the not so good things that help us raise our own vibration and grow. So it's very necessary. I realize how much I've changed throughout my marriage, and that's exactly what you're talking about. I've changed and I've become better because of it, because of that contrast, um, and in many ways. So I actually appreciate it. And when you look at it that way, you start appreciating it, and then you actually attracting more positive things for yourself. So it's a good way to look at it. Always look at the contrast as something positive because it is helping you. It's there for a reason. It's helping you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's stay there for a second, Rosie, because when we talk about a fairy tale or the premise of a fairy tale in Hollywood and movies, you meet your mate and then the credits roll. Like they never show what happens when after the credits roll. You think, okay, that's the end.
Yeah. But even before you meet, like once you meet them, nothing is perfect right off the bat, right? There's obstacles and there's challenges and there's you have to overcome to be, to match with that person, and it's not perfect. And then yes, you're right. After the the happily ever after is not shown. My favorite, growing up, I had a vinyl record of Cinderella. That was my favorite. We didn't have lots of children's books at that time, but we did have fairy tales, and I have that on a record. I would play it over and over and over. I knew that fairy tale by heart. It was my favorite. And it's just, there were obstacles there, and of course, she got the prince, but what happened after? Did they never argue? Never had, disagreements, and he was never disrespectful after that? I doubt it. Right? So that's a fairy tale. Yeah. It comes with the contrast.
I like that because it reminds me of a good friend of mine. He was married to his wife for 19 years. And they never argued for 19 years, right? And so one day he had come to work and he was distraught. He had to leave work early and all. And, we're like, what's wrong? He's like, my wife just left me. And so at the end, she was like, well, you never raised your voice. I never saw the passion. We never argued. Like, she felt that there needed to be the contract, and he was probably a little bit too much of a people pleaser, so much you might say he was a pushover. I mean, he gave her everything that she wanted, but he thought that's what she wanted. In the end, she left him because of it.
See, yeah, that's how it could play out, and you don't want to break your marriage. So if and you think on the surface, it's a very positive thing. They don't argue, but it must have building up inside her, and something was not right. So yeah, the contrast is bringing growth, which is absolutely needed. You cannot stay in the same state, in the same position that you were when you got married. So of course you're going to evolve, and that requires contrast. Once you get to the next level, there's more contrast to deal with in order to get to the next level, because we're constantly moving. Life is not still, so there's no way things are the same. And so that's probably what it was, I'm guessing.
Can you give us an example of contrast? I'm sure when you first got married, you probably thought, life would be so much better if my husband would just put the toilet seat down. And then there was more to it. So can you give us an example of a contrast that helped you grow?
Well, so many things. We're very different. I was by nature, I'm an introvert, and he's very social. He's very positive. Anything is possible. Nothing stands in my way. Whatever I said to do, and I used to be, that way, sort of negative, just looking for, always finding the ways why it wouldn't happen, and kind of So he prompted me to see that it's something crazy impossible, even if he sets his mind to it, and it says it's going to happen, and I said there is no way that's going to happen, and it does over and over. I'm like, really? So it started to grow in me that, in fact, that's how I should look at life, and try to find how to accomplish things instead of trying to find why they wouldn't happen. But yeah, talking about that's what it is. If he would just stop drinking from the bottle, or the juice from the bottle, or stuff like that, it hasn't changed, but you just go with it. Yeah. So some things don't change, but you grow and start to accept it and look at it differently. So it's just always compromising, and it's it depends on how you take the contrast. You can take it in a positive way.
And thank you for that. You said you had 3 children. Are they all girls, or is there a boy in the mix?
Yeah. I have 2 girls and a boy. The third one is a boy.
Okay, perfect. So there's 4 of us, and there were 3 girls and me, right? And I have a twin sister. And there was obviously a difference between the way, even though we were under the same roof, where for certain things they approach things differently for me versus the girls in the family. Do you guys look at it the same way, or everyone's pretty much getting the same message?
Are you asking about my approach as a parent?
Yeah, I'm just thinking I'm thinking from a fairy tale love, right? When you ultimately meet someone, you find out, well, this is what I learned. I learned that you don't really know someone until you spend the holidays with them, right? And so when you see the holidays, you see that archetype of how they were raised. And so another story that I've always learned was I always tell women, you don't really know a guy unless you see how he treats his mother. So guys and girls look at each other differently. And so when you're attracting your fairy tale love, are there certain things you should look for that you may, and your kids may be too young, but it's like, or they're in high school and just beginning, like, these are the things you should look for, or this is just fairy tale love and you really need to focus on maybe your career or something. Versus your boy, you may say, well, no, you should focus on your career and then love will come afterwards. I'm just wondering if there are different messages that you're giving to your boy versus your 2 girls.
No, not really, and I don't think there should be a difference, or that I should really try to control what they do with their lives. I can give advice, but they have their own guidance and their own emotional system to give them the tools they need. So as a mom, I can, it's very delicate. I've started to understand, because we think that as parents we have to just pave the way for them and tell them what's right, what's wrong, and what they need to do exactly the way we think because of our own experience. My kids have a very different experience growing up in North America than, the way I grew up in Bulgaria. So my experience is not relevant at all as a child and as a teenager. So I can give them advice, and I can, share my opinion, but I don't want to control them in a way that I say, well, this is the first and this is the second and this is the third and this is exactly how you do it. I don't think that's healthy parenting. So I wouldn't say anything different to my boy. Just because he's a boy compared to the girls, I would look at their personality and approach that depending on their personality, not their gender, you know. So, and they have different interests. They have different personalities. They respond differently to things. So it wouldn't be one, approach fits all with them, regardless of whether it's my girl or my boy. So that's how I look at it.
That's a really good point. Since you're an Abraham fan, it makes me think of a story where a mother had asked Abraham a question. She was like, I guess trying to control. She's saying, my son, he can't meet anybody. Abraham, can you send somebody his way? And then Abraham was like, well, look at the energy that he's putting out now. If someone was in his life, they'd both be dysfunctional. It'd be a terrible relationship. Like, why would you want that now?
Exactly.
So could you talk a little bit about the difference between being lonely or being alone? Is there a difference?
Yes, a very big difference, being lonely and being alone. I like being alone. Like I said, as an introvert and as a writer, I need alone time. I crave it really badly. I actually get drained in big crowds and lots of people, and then I have to recharge for a long time. So for me, being alone, is a necessity. I just need the quiet time and to be with my thoughts and to write and create and all that. But I don't feel lonely at all. I feel very comfortable being alone. But lonely is when you actually really don't have that comfort in your heart and your soul that you have people in your life who love you and you love them, and you have the company you need when you need it. So someone to share your journey with, and that's the major difference. But you can be alone and not feel lonely, that's for sure.
And I'm a big music fan, so that makes me think of Michael Jackson for a second, because one of his most popular songs were "You Are Not Alone." And so if you're not alone, or if you're feeling lonely, you're, in essence, in a spiritual sense, you're exhibiting the fact that you, at least intellectually, you're trying to logically feel that you're not a part of the universe, meaning you're separate from the universe. So I guess that would feel lonely if you are not. Another side of it is to be still and know that I'm God, right? So if that's spiritual, you're connecting to higher vibrations versus feeling separated. I guess that's a long story of saying, Michael Jackson, that's a really good song, You Are Not Alone. And I wanted to throw that in there when people listen to this about attracting your fairy tale love, you are never alone.
Yes, you're never alone. Yes, you're part of the universe, and you're never alone. And if you do feel alone and lonely, that means, you've disconnected yourself somehow. But once you find that connection, you'll feel the peace of it and the reassurance and the knowing that you are not alone. So that automatically raises your vibration. You're attracting the resources, the people that you need in your life to reinforce that feeling of not being alone. But you're right.
And the other side of that is we've talked a lot about attracting your fairy tale love, right, even after Valentine's Day. And that's usually the beginning. And so that could be in your 20s, 30s, 40s. But if you have a lifelong partner, like you said, those relationships continue to change. And one of your books is called Sarah's Song, talking about your relationship with your grandma, where that relationship changed. And that may change with not necessarily your partner, but other people's partner over time. I'd like for you to talk a little bit about Sarah's Song, what was the drive for it, and maybe we can take that and plug that into attracting your fairy tale love.
Yes, Sarah's song is about the special bond grandchildren share with their grandparents. In this case, it was the granddaughter with her grandmother, and they love sharing music and dancing and singing together. But as grandma ages, that relationship changes. So, and it's not she's not necessarily sick or anything, but just with aging, she started using a cane. She's having a hard time keeping up with the dancing and singing. So the relationship changes to where Sarah now is trying to get grandma to go back to their routines and their playtimes, but it's not happening anymore. So Sarah's the one dancing and singing, and grandma's just rocking on a chair or just, laying in bed. But so the relationship changes. Sarah's disappointed, of course, and she wants to find a way to bring that back. So she thinks if she finds the perfect song, grandma will start dancing and singing again, which of course doesn't happen, but she has to find a way to keep the tradition alive and to keep going, even in light of that new relationship. And the way she does it, you have to, read the book to find out. But yes, all relationships change. It's not possible for them to stay the same. And even I'll give you an example with my kids, because my oldest one is almost 18, and then the little ones are 10 and 11, and their age difference is 18 months. But sometimes my oldest one would say something, well, it's not fair because he got this and I didn't get it. And I would say to her, okay, well, he also wears diapers. Would you like me to put one on you too? So it's fair. It's not. It doesn't have to be fair because it's according to his needs and to your needs. So I don't take that. That excuse. It's not fair. Yes. Would you like to drink from a bottle? Also, because it's not fair. I wouldn't force that on you and tell you, well, it's not fair. So don't use that excuse. So same thing, the relationship between our parents with grandparents, husband, they changed, and they should change. They're supposed to. It's not a good thing to stay the same at the same level. So yeah, we grow that way.
And along those lines, is your husband from Bulgaria?
He is, yes. Yeah, we met there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, perfect. Because what I was trying to get at was family traditions, and you're saying your kids are different. And in 2019, you have more and more relationships where the people may not be from the same tradition. So if they're attracting their fairy tale love, they may not actually be in that tradition that they're in. What would you say to those people, and how could those two worlds would, in essence, collide, but how could they make a successful relationship?
There's always a way, and as long as you focus on the positive and the things that you do appreciate, you will attract more of those things, and you will see that even if you're trying to change your partner, I don't think that would be very successful, because you're doing it out of possibly anger towards something they did or didn't do, and you're trying to change that. And the more you're trying, the more you're attracting the same behavior, and it's a vicious circle, and you get even more frustrated and you try even more, but it doesn't work. Once you let go and you focus on the things that you actually like about that partner, what you have in common, what you're celebrating together, what your values are, what you're trying to accomplish together, the more you will attract the same kind of behavior, and they will sense it in you too, and their vibration will raise to meet you, because only two things can happen. They can either raise their vibration and meet you at that level, or they can fall off your world entirely, which should be a positive thing, even if it hurts at the moment, because you are actually not wanting someone like that to be in your life. So it's a win-win situation. Always look at it that way. It's a win-win. If they don't belong, you don't need them. If they do belong, they will raise and meet you. So that's how you should look at it. no matter how different we are from the same country, we grew up in the exact same city, we went to the same school, and yet we are so different. I can't even begin to tell you how different we are. But at the same time, we do share the same values, the same aspirations, sort of, in what the big picture things, you know. So that's the basis. And so you can do it. We have lots of friends who are from different races, different religions, and they're married and they have happy marriages. So depending on how you decide to look at it and focus on what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask Rosie real quick. So I really like the illustrations in Sarah's song. How did you find Emma Allen?
Well, that was my publisher's choice. They get to pick the illustrator. They did ask for my opinion, but Emma was perfect. I love her illustrations, and you're right, even Kirkus loved them. So it was a great match. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And my last question, one of my favorite illustrations is actually not in the book. It's the illustration from Jada. And so Jada had written that letter to you a couple of weeks ago in 2019. My question to you is, if it's 2019 right now, let's say it's 2039, and Jada's an adult now, and she's totally forgotten about her childhood, and she's forgotten how to get a fairy tale lover and all this. What would you say to her in 2039 to kind of reset her to, again, think like a child and maybe build her or raise her vibration so that she can actually attract what she wants?
I would just want to remind her how magical it was, back when she was a child and she believed in the fairy tales and she read the books and she was excited about the story and the characters, even though they were fictional. They were in her life, and her feelings about them was so real that she experienced the joy. So I would remind her to do the same exact thing in her life, in her present life as an adult, just to keep that excitement about the fairy tale and the fiction in her head until it becomes reality, because it will. So that's, and even I have another upcoming book about the love of books and reading and how stories and imagination help us navigate through life. So I'm also excited about that project. Same thing. You believe in fairy tales will help you in your reality and your life.
I love it. And you also have outreach to teachers and librarians. You do school visits. How could people get in touch with you, and how could they get access to your existing books and sit on their hands while we wait for your new book to come out?
Yes. Well, my books are available everywhere, online and in stores. My website is www.rosiejpova.com. And I love doing school visits. I'm very passionate about that. I love encouraging kids to, like I said, believe in themselves, use their creativity in all areas of their life. So I always am very prepared and go and present to kids with love and with passion. So anyone, teachers, librarians, please go to my website and contact me. I'll be happy to visit your school and encourage your students.
Fantastic. I did have one last question that I thought about that I didn't get to ask you, since you're a Law of Attraction fan. We had 11, 11, 11, and then we had 2012, and from a synchronicity state on the web, a lot of people are talking about 219, which will happen in 2 days. Are you paying attention to any numerology, or as it relates to the full moon that'll happen when the stars align on 219?
I don't really pay attention to that necessarily, because your vibration is vibration. You can always attract what you want. It's not about the exact date. So yeah, to me it wouldn't. Yeah,
Perfect.
I don't really follow that. Yeah.
Oh, no worries. Just thought I'd ask. And with that, we totally enjoyed it. You've been in tune to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I am David.
Rosie, it was a pleasure. Let's stay in touch.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yes, pleasure. Absolutely.
Thanks for being with us.
You're welcome.